we are an art and architecture collaborative, which means we are two artists, two architects collaborating since 10 years. The company is called Public Works because we are interested in the public realm. That's our key concern in public spaces, and we're interested in participatory methods to shape public works, public spaces. So it's often in bottom-up or co-authorship. So we work a lot from within the art field towards an architectural field.
We decided to have an emergency plan for the revitalization of Beit Sahur in order to be able to understand the morphology of the town and the main items that compose the town. We wanted to go to the local community. We wanted to address the local community, take their feedback on what we're doing, because that's a very important item. Because if we make a plan that doesn't satisfy their needs, we will not be able to use that plan, especially under the situation in Palestine. What we did, we mainly use as community mapping, not cultural mapping, because we are mapping with the community. Okay, to serve the cultural purposes in our historic town, or to identify the historic town, but mainly our definition was to involve the community in defining the cultural identity of their town.
So we found a piece of land close to our house, which we then lobbied with neighbors, etc., to turn into a community garden. And the way we've done that is that we've literally on the street started to have events, from a barbecue, from a film screening, from really and it's a quite run-down street with kind of burned-out cars, quite rough. But we fly post it, so it's the very most direct way you can imagine. You fly post, you knock on doors, you tell people what you're doing. And that most direct way proves again and again very successful. And we had, I don't know, 4 or 5 events like this, and started to register it on a website. So we made it public. The event was public, but we also kind of made a document which we published, which is visible. And that's quite important for the city as well, that they see something's happening. Maybe they haven't been there, but they see there's a mobilization going on. And that happened over a year and a half or so, and the city donated the space to us, and we've become increasingly kind of working in partnership, but this group that we formed took very much the lead. And that was quite unusual for the city, that it was that you have a group that wants to drive a process of placemaking, rather than be one that is also being consulted.
As the process goes on, things become easier for the participatory approach, especially when they start to see results. I mean, in the last meeting, when we had the donors and the investors and the stakeholders together, they were almost convinced that we're working for a purpose.
There it was definitely through this process of an event structure to generate a community. And that community is quite fluid. People come and they don't come again, and then suddenly they appear again, and so you have to take that into account. But also the process of creating a garden is quite easy for everyone to imagine. So it's not so people are not so opinionated, and there's a lot of room to kind of accommodate people. If you want roses, yeah, there's space for roses. But what we've tried to avoid is really to have discussions on taste, but really try to come to issues that are relevant. I think there are a number of techniques we use. One is you find topics that are common. I mean, the idea of coffee, for example, that we used in the exercise here. One reason is because that's something everyone across the society, ethnic groups, age, gender, whatever, everyone relates to. And you can find these activities, and there are often ways in. a very good way to kind of access the situation and piggyback onto. We found, for example, gardening is amazing because food production, as everyone has an expertise on in a way. So it's on the one hand, it's finding commonalities, and on the other hand, it's also what we've done is we try to make a lot of smaller events continuous and in public. So you invite people, but also because it's public, people can casually join. And that kind of informality, kind of constructed informality is quite helpful in slowly generating a network and bringing different people together.
We tried to select a category that covers almost everybody in the historic town. We invited everybody. The historic town is very small and most of it is abandoned. So we had a small group, just around 60 people to discuss the project with, which was easy for community participation. The smaller the group is, the easier it is to deal with, but you have to deal with variety of people, not one group.
So in a lot of these projects, you try to mobilize the community or initiate a network of participants, and that takes a while, and you really literally have to go into a situation. You have to hang out. You have to connect with people who want to connect with you, and start raising awareness of whatever project you might be doing, and that can be. It does take time. From my experience, you can't pressure it too much. For example, we've been asked to run a project to reshape a public space in a housing estate, and they allocated 2 weeks for participation. And 2 weeks, there is no connection being built up or maintained. So it needs to be an ongoing engagement, and that's quite important. Because what happens a lot that people get consulted, and then they get forgotten about. And from the person gets consulted, they give a lot. They feel like they're giving. And then after 2 years, they are asked to give again. And that relationship is quite critical. So you have to create a relationship that's kind of reciprocal in a way, where it's not only that the person that's being consulted feels like it's giving, but it's also kind of a give and take. And that relationship then has to grow into something where you find a way of making decisions together.
We try to show them our concepts without them noticing that we are showing concepts, to discuss the situation, to listen to them while, of course, taking notes on everything, and to layer what we get from the people, from the surveys, from everything, to reach a final map that satisfies everybody.